Putting on a live performance or an artistic event is a great way for village and community halls to draw in visitors. But where do you find the talent? Hi everyone, I'm Johnny Thompson and welcome once again to the Village Halls podcast sponsored by Allied Westminster, the UK's largest specialist provider of village hall insurance and the home of Village Guard. Now we all have a bit of performing art, whether it's a play, a stand-up comic, contemporary dance or a photography exhibition. And in Britain there's no shortage of talented people out there, but finding them and arranging for them to perform in small rural communities can be a bit of a task. However, there is help out there for village halls wanting to put on such events, and today I'm joined by Holly Lombardo and Stephie Jessop, who are both from the National Rural Touring Forum, and who'll be telling us about how they work with halls in rural communities to help put on wonderful shows and events. Hi, Holly and Stephie. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Johnny. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Now, Holly, let's begin by talking about the National Rural Touring Forum, or NRTF. What is it your organisation does, and perhaps more importantly, why do you do it?
Thank you. The NRTF, the National Rural Touring Forum, has been running for 25 years now, and we've just had our 25th birthday. And it's a charity that is also a national portfolio organisation, which is the regularly funded organisation of Arts Council England. And we're set up to network and support high quality and innovative work going into rural communities across the whole country. So we've got over 500 members. And they range from rural touring schemes, which are the arts development agencies and programming hubs of rural tours. And there's 30 of them across the country. And basically the schemes are the organisations that they don't live in a venue, and they operate in their surrounding villages, rural, but also rural towns, small towns. But the most important thing is that they're really seated at the heart of those communities that they reside. We've also got promoters, we call them, who are the people and groups who host the shows and the events and the artists in the spaces. These can be anywhere from libraries to pubs, outdoor spaces, community centres, schools, but we really are probably best known for village hall touring. And also, importantly, we have artists as members and some producing houses as well, arts organisations, festivals and creative groups. So we're set up to kind of support that ecosystem that delivers these high quality experiences in the communities.
Yeah, you can bring all these groups and people together. And what's your role, Holly, at NRTF?
Sorry, I'm the director of the NRTF. So we're a very small team. We really are just the equivalent of 2 full-time members of staff. So there's myself as director, Stephie is our communications manager, and we've got a project manager and a finance manager as well. But we've always worked remotely, even before COVID. So we're based all over the country. All 4 of us are in different places, which sort of echoes the membership and the organisation. Yeah.
And Stephie, tell me what you do at NRTF.
So at NRTF, I'm the communications manager, which is a grand sounding title. So that ranges from everything from shouting nationally about the work that all our members do to communicating with those members and people that want to find out more about rural touring. So I give a lot of advice directly to artists and to village halls and other venues that are interested in finding out more about how they can work within rural touring.
Yeah, and Holly mentioned the 30 regional touring schemes that form part of your network, and I understand you're part of one of those as well.
Yeah, so I also am the creative producer for Spot on Lancashire, which is Lancashire's rural and library touring network. And we are responsible for putting on professional performances and other arts events in rural venues and other community spaces across Lancashire.
So I guess at that level, that's where a lot of the interaction between the artists the performers and the village and community halls, for example, takes place, yeah?
Yeah, so the rural touring schemes are the people that are on the ground within locations that are really making those shows and performances happen, along with their promoters and their venues and the artists. And then the NRTF is kind of the national body that supports that and fills in the gaps and finds those extra projects to help.
Wonderful. Around how many rural venues overall then would you say that you work with? And I take it the spread, you mentioned, Holly, before about the spread all throughout the UK, yeah?
They are, yes. We use, well, village halls. I know that we use about 1,000. Well, our members use about 1,000 village halls, and that makes up about 10% of all village halls in the country. So, one, that's a lot, but also there's obviously a lot who aren't yet using this network to program. Although it doesn't mean they're not programming performances, they're just not yet involved in the NRTF and the local schemes. But there's hundreds and hundreds, thousands of spaces across the country, and they change. Sometimes one village hall will take up one event or two, or we might find a new library space. That Stephie mentioned projects. There's a project run by a scheme in the Southeast, Creative Arts East and Applause Rural Touring, called the In Crowd Project, which is about taking spoken word into pubs. And so there's new spaces opening up all the time in pubs and public houses and things like that. So that's really exciting, and it's taking work to a new audience potentially. And then we've also got the TAIL project, which is touring arts in libraries, and that's run by the NRTF, and that is also about sort of opening up new work in new spaces. And importantly, as a kind of the artists and the performers have to be very adaptable to kind of turning up and finding how to fit in, how to fit their work and their piece into the space that's being provided, which every time they travel somewhere on a rural touring circuit will be completely different to the place they went before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously put a lot of effort into getting performers and artists out there in the rural community. So tell me, why do you believe access to the arts in these places is so important?
So there's lots of barriers to those living in the countryside to access live art and culture. And really the NRTF and the network is addressing some of those, which can be anything from kind of financial and travelling to large cities and in big institutions. It costs a lot of money, not just for tickets, but the travel, possibly accommodation, the time it takes to get to these larger theatres, it could be a barrier, and the distance, people maybe don't want to travel 60 miles to see a show. And then there's the social as well, so not feeling that larger venues and cultural institutions are for them, or they don't feel welcome, or it's not somewhere they feel particularly comfortable. So there's all sorts of barriers, and rural touring is about levelling out those opportunities and access to the top quality creative experiences, which we keep talking about, and to shows for those who live in rural spaces, rural areas.
And Stephie, give me a sense of the diversity and the variety of the performers and artists that you work with.
Yeah, so I mean, we're not afraid of taking on an adventure when it comes to rural touring. So you have, the way it works is that a scheme that covers an area. So as I said, we cover Lancashire, and a lot of the schemes tend to cover sort of county lines. We go and we find out who's touring, where are they going, what dates are there available, and we put together a menu of those professional shows that we then put out to all the venues that we work with, and they can choose the shows which works best for their community and their village hall and their incredibly busy venue diary. And on that menu, we do want something for everyone. So we have everything from music, theatre, family work. We've done circus. We do contemporary dance. We've done installations where artists take over a village hall for a whole day. Basically anything that you would find in any major arts venue in any city or urban centre, you will find happening also in village halls, thanks to rural touring.
Yeah. And any well-known talent or anyone who perhaps started off rural touring and then went on to become a famous name on TV or anything like that?
Well, I think it works both ways. We find in our casts that there were people that you will recognise from soaps on TV or British drama, and you also find that it works the other way. So people will be watching TV and they will suddenly spot someone that they had in their village hall. I mean, that's the life of most performers, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of champions as well of rural touring. So Ian McMillan, Kate Fox, Holly had a whole conversation with Miranda Hart, I believe, about village halls as well.
Yeah, I did.
These are great spaces where a lot of people that go on to work in the arts and performances, it's where they cut their teeth. It's where they maybe started off in their local community players group. I did. That's how I ended up working in the arts. And rural touring is just a part of that circuit. And I've forgotten the word that I want to use, but it's just a part of that life of performances. And we treat the village hall just as much as we would treat any London theatre or big arts venue. We expect the same high quality level of performance for all our audiences.
But I guess that the experience of a live performance or an exhibition in a village hall can be a lot different from those much larger city centre venues, right?
Yeah, it's much more personal and intimate. There's no hiding. And one of the things that we say a lot is that if you're going to a theatre or a performance venue, you're going to visit the artist. You're going to their space where they feel very much in control and they know all the ins and outs of that building, and you only tend to see one room. And you go and you sit in the dark and you might have a drink at the interval, but chances are once the curtain closes, you leave and go home for the night. Mm-hmm. Whereas with a village hall, we're asking the artists to visit the community and visit the audience in their space. And our community promoters, so might be the village hall committee, they'll often cook a hot meal for the performer before their show and sit down all together and chat and get to know one another. The performers will often stay behind after the show and have a drink in the bar with the audience. And it's one of the things that people that are on the circuit performing absolutely love about rural touring, because when do you normally get a chance to truly go and speak to your audience? And when normally as an audience member do you get a chance to really find out how did this performer end up becoming a world-class violinist, or how did they get into acting? And it all comes together. It's very equal. There's no, this is my space or your space. It's, we just all want to find out more about each other. And it's also one of the places where in that village hall audience, there are people there that came along and had no idea what it was they were coming to. They came along to support the village hall or to see their neighbours or because our promoter told them to. And because of that, you get an audience that might not consider themselves to be theatre people, really truly engaging with the work and talking to the performers afterwards. It's quite special in that way.
Yeah, I guess, Holly, that's one of the great things about it, isn't it? It's a great opportunity to attract all kinds of visitors to your village hall, and a variety, because you can attract a younger audience or people from much further afield, for example. Yeah,
you do. You find a whole families coming to shows, which is, it's not always the same in a black box urban space. You might get two people deciding to come buy tickets, whereas it's a whole family outing quite often in a village hall. But it's not for everyone. Village hall touring is not for all artists. They have to be prepared for that immediate feedback. And there's a lot of training happens across the country. So we run artist labs at NRTF. So but also so do lots of schemes across the country, just to make sure it's very important that artists understand the complete nuances of touring into these spaces before they attempt to kind of crack on with a tour across the country, because it is very different, as Stephie was saying, to a black box theatre where you have got the fourth wall and you're disconnected from your audiences a little bit. But this one, you are very much amongst them and with them, and that's the beauty of it.
It's a different kind of feedback
Yeah, it's
altogether,
magic.
isn't it? It's not just applause. It's almost like a fine toothpick, I would imagine at times.
Absolutely. Yeah, quite often.
Yeah. And being so local, this must also encourage people in rural areas to perhaps sample something they may never have tried before, which is also a wonderfully positive thing as well. Yeah.
I mean, we've got a statistic from our last pre-COVID survey from across the country, and it's something like 50% of our audience members have been to a rural touring event in their village hall at least once before in the previous 12 months. I mean, most people probably don't go to the theatre that often for all those reasons that Holly said before, and people go back because they are excited to see what's coming next. They're excited to try something new, and it takes a lot of the risk out of going and giving something a try, because at the end of the night, even if you didn't love the show or it ends up not being quite your cup of tea, you know that it's been people at the top of their game performing, but also you've still had a really good night out within your community.
And it's funny how these things can sometimes become your absolute passion, yet previously, before you ever sampled it, you might have been doing it down. I don't know. It can be surprising when you open yourself up to these things. And I think that's the great thing about what you do, is you're really taking this out there into the heart of rural communities and encouraging people to try stuff that, like I said, maybe never thought of trying before.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
We have some anecdotal feedback on that from a project called the Rural Touring Dance Initiative, which has been a partnership project with organisations like The Place in London, with Take Art, which is a scheme on the South Coast, with China Plate and various others as well. And one of the statistics, and it sounds a bit cliche, but it is one of our responses, was there was a farmer in rural Cumbria who didn't. They said that they didn't. It's contemporary dance. It's not in his sphere of things that he would go to, but he came along because it was in the local village hall, and now he's a real contemporary dance fan. And you think, and he'll seek it out now as well. So it's that kind of anecdote and those kind of real life changing moments for people when they get to see. We can't underestimate rural audiences and their want for professional quality work coming to their areas. People in rural areas really love good work as well as people who live in cities. So we don't underestimate the audiences in rural spaces, and they have every right to see some of the best quality contemporary dance in the country as people who live in London. And that was that's why we set up the Rural Touring Dance Initiative. And it's just one of many projects in that style and interventions that happen through rural touring.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, Stephie, as Holly mentioned at the beginning, there are a lot of halls out there that are already aware of your work, but there's still many who clearly don't know about you and what you can bring to their rural communities. So, if there are any halls out there who are wanting to put on more events, what should they do, and where can they find more information?
Yeah, so I mean, the statistic that Holly said at the top of the recording about there being 1,000 village halls, that's 1,000 that take a show in a year. So that's not to say that there aren't an awful lot more that know about it, but there's only so many shows to go around and so much funding as well. But I guess if you are sat there thinking, I have never heard of this before, and there will be people that haven't heard of it before, on our website, which is ruraltouring.org, you can see a button on the homepage that says Browse All Schemes, and you will find your local rural touring scheme from that page. I mean, they're the people to go and talk to if you're really interested in putting on a show in your venue. There are one or two areas in the country that aren't quite covered by a scheme, in which case, please get in touch with us, because we can link you up in other ways, whether that's because a professional touring group have got dates spare where they can fit in an extra tour, or whether it's because we know of another project in that area that can help, we always try and point people in the right direction.
And a final word of encouragement for village halls and rural communities from you, Holly?
Yes, so we also work with Acre, who some of the village halls will know, and they run a week called Village Halls Week, which is normally at the end of January. So that is another space to celebrate the work that village halls do, and we always have a kind of performance day in that. It is, there is, like Stephie said, there are waiting lists for some halls, but there are ways to also get work if you're not working with a scheme. So there's lots of artists on our website as well that they can browse, and our artist members who mostly have done some kind of rural tour. But a word of encouragement, it's brilliant. It's a great organisation to be part of, and the shows are really good quality. And at the moment, there's nothing more important than community engagement and getting people together again in whether they're audiences and they're helping out as volunteers, they're feeding or looking after the artists when they arrive. There's a way for the community to get involved in rural touring.
Absolutely.
And it's really great.
Yeah, we were starved of that for so long, and there must be a great thirst for it out there now. Yeah, tremendous. Well, thank you both so much for coming on today. I think what you do is fantastic, because I imagine there are many people out there who absolutely love the performing arts but may find it difficult to access. And also what you do really helps halls to put on something different in the rural community as well. So thanks for everything you do at NRTF.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. No, it's been lovely chatting with you both.
Thank you, and you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode. Keep submitting your entries to our wonderful Villagers Awards. There's 5 awards altogether, including an Unsung Heroes and Young Persons Award. So keep them coming in, as you could win £1,000 for your local village church or community hall. You can find more information about the wonderful Village Awards on our website. Many thanks to our headline sponsor and specialist insurance provider, Allied Westminster, for making our podcast possible, and whose services you can discover more about at villageguard.com, and to online booking system provider Hallmaster, who also sponsor our podcast and can be found at hallmaster.co.uk. You've been listening to the Village Halls podcast, a unique listening community for Britain's village, church and community halls, and anyone interested in the vital community services they provide. We'll be back again soon with another episode. Please visit thevillagehallspodcast.com to subscribe, sign up for updates, link through to our social media pages, and to find out more. Until the next time, goodbye for now.